And welcome to this week's episode of Hired How to Get the Jobs Weekly Review. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be discussing how to succeed in an emotional intelligence interview as well as motivational interviews, focusing on really 4 areas. And then we'll be taking questions and answers. So get your live questions in. Okay, I always do live questions. I always prioritize them. But my name is Tony Martin. I write a little blog called howtogetthejob.blog and started that about 5 years ago. I've been a staffing and recruiting professional for about 15, 16 years. And I have a passion for helping coach people on resume writing, interviewing, as well as LinkedIn profiles, helping get those things to be at their optimal levels to help market yourself. And then on my corporate client side, I really help my corporate clients with retention numbers. Okay, I mean, I have a stat that I use all the time. 31% of people quit a job within 6 months, and rarely does it have anything to do with technical ability. That's a pre-COVID number. I have to imagine when we come out of this thing, as we're coming out of this thing, people are taking jobs today just to take a job, which means come December, January, February, March, when we fully come out of this thing, we are going to have a higher level of turnover than ever before because people just said yes to the job today so they could feed their family, so they could find the job they want tomorrow. So if you are an HR professional and you're hiring people and you're just kind of, you don't really have a deliberate strategy to hiring, it's just posting a job, you need to talk to me and I can help you. I can help make your team stronger and I can help make sure that we're not so concerned with the hiring numbers in the front end as we're more concerned with the revolving door aspect and people leaving on the back end. But before we discuss any questions, let me first say, make sure if you like this, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the content there. Okay, all of these videos are there. I do 5 or 6 minute videos a week, weekly videos on different topics, whether it's applications, cover letters, resumes. I mean, it's a whole bunch of things, salary negotiations. Go check that stuff out and subscribe there because I know sometimes it gets confusing when I do a Facebook show and a LinkedIn show and you don't really quite know where I'm at. I'm always there on YouTube, streaming at the same time. Next, before we get into our first topic, use the comment section, okay? Use the comment section, not just to ask questions, but also to say who you are, where you're from. Hi, Moses, good to see you. But do that because in this time of COVID, right, we don't know when we can actually network with people again normally. So sometimes I invite HR professionals on these things as well because I talk to HR professionals a lot and you don't know if the person you are is the person they're looking for. So feel free to put who you are, where you're located, and frankly, by doing that too, it actually spreads out this reach to other people inside your network who might go, oh, look, Moses is looking at this right now or whatever, and it might remind them of who you are. So by you participating in the show, you're actually helping your network reach as well. All right, so now let's get to our topic today. Usually when I do these things, I do 2 or 3 topics. I'll read a current article, and what happens? We get to Q&A 10 minutes late. So today I'm only going to do 1 topic in hopes that when we get to the Q&A, we'll be 10 minutes into the show versus 15 to 20 minutes into the show, allowing for more questions because on LinkedIn, I seem to have a lot more questions than I usually do over on Facebook. So I want to make sure I get to those. But let's talk a little bit about emotional intelligence interviewing, motivational interviewing, and how you can be successful in both of those areas. Because the further you get into an interview process, the more likely you are to come across one of these types of, I guess, tools to be screened out with. So first of all, when you're answering emotional intelligence questions, you want to use the CAR acronym, okay? You want to give a specific situation, your actions, and the results. And if you've watched any of these shows, I have focused on self-awareness, self-control a lot. Okay, those are 2 emotional intelligence traits that every HR professional should be screening for when they're hiring somebody. And if that person is lacking self-awareness and self-control, they should not be hired. Okay, but we're going to go through the 4 things. You should know the CAR acronym. You should understand why the question's being asked. If you're a candidate, you should hear a question like, tell me about a time you acted inappropriately in a meeting. Now that question isn't about a specific time. That's your answer. Your answer is giving me a specific time when you acted inappropriately, right? But the question is actually a self-awareness question. How do you know you acted inappropriately? It's also a self-control question. Why did you act inappropriately in this meeting? So by you answering the question, you're now telling me things about your self-awareness, self-control, your social skills, perhaps, and a few other things. but that's the question behind the question. So you need to hear a question like that and go, ah, this is a self-awareness question. Because then when I ask my follow-up questions, which is the third thing I want to talk to you guys about, be prepared with the follow-up questions. Your story is the one that dictates where we go in this follow-up question world. But if you give me a story about a terrible situation, then my follow-up questions are going to be terrible answers as well. So you need to be well prepared. And then the fourth way you become well prepared is by reading and understanding the job description, because that is the breadcrumbs. That's going to give you the hints to what questions are actually going to be asked. So let's first, again, dive into the CAR acronym. Circumstance. When I say, tell me about a time when, that's your clue. This is going to be a question that I want a specific time. I don't want you to give me a general time. I want you to give me a specific action you did, and I want you to give me the results of those actions. Then I'm going to lead you on the follow-up questions. First, let's talk about why is it important for me to get a specific situation? Why specific circumstance? Let me ask you a question. If I say, and you didn't know me, if I ask you this question and you know me really well, you're going to be honest. But if you don't know me very well, this is a first interview. I like to say a first date. And I'm asking you questions, you're going to be on your guard. So if I asked you in the first interview where you don't know me and you want the job, hey, what do you do when you come to a yellow light and you're driving? You're going to say, I slow down. Good answer. So you know the right answer. Now, if I say, well, what did you do at the yellow light at this very specific intersection by your house this morning when you drove here? You're going to have a different answer, potentially. Now, in both of those scenarios, you might say in the second answer, well, actually, I sped up to get through the yellow light. Or actually, I just went through it. Whatever. Now, HR side, if that's the last question you ask, a specific question, you don't ask any follow-ups, we have learned less than we would have learned by asking the person what they should do. At least when we ask them what they should do, we know that they know right and wrong, and we know what they should do. Candidates, if you answer a specific question and you don't go and get any follow-up questions, make sure every specific question you answer, you give more and more details, because the person you're speaking with might not be a very good recruiter. They're just going off of a script and they don't really know why. And if you don't leave a good impression, they're not going to do it for you. So why did we learn less during the specific answer of you slowed down? We learned less because everything I learned is based on my assumption as a recruiter. If I say, what did you actually do this morning when you went through this specific yellow light, and you tell me I sped up, and I just move on to the next question, I am assuming you broke the law. I am assuming you sped up when you shouldn't have. I'm assuming a lot. But perhaps if I asked a follow-up question, you would have said, well, it's a 45-kilometer road and I was going 35 kilometers an hour, so I sped up to reach the speed limit and I got safely through. Oh, okay, well, that's not bad. Or there was actually an ambulance behind me, and if I didn't speed up to go through it, I wouldn't have been able to get through the intersection safely to get the ambulance to pass me. There are dozens and dozens of scenarios as to why it's okay not to slow down at a yellow light. But if you as a recruiter don't ask any follow-up questions, everything you are doing in that interview is built on an assumption, not built on fact. So you need to ask follow-up questions. That analogy holds true and is frankly the best analogy I could ever come up with for emotional intelligence interviewing. When I asked you, why did you do this? Why did you say something you later regretted? Why were you unfairly criticized? When I asked you those questions and you tell me your answer, often you're going to leave some details out just because you're not thinking about them. And I'm going to assume and fill in the blanks. So if I don't ask you follow-up questions to fill those blanks in with your information, I'm going to assume possibly wrongly and discontinue our conversation or stop the process, and you're not moving forward. So now we need to understand the acronym. We understand why it's important as specifics. Now we need to understand why they're asking. So let me first go over how many emotional intelligence traits there are. There's usually 10, and I say usually because this is an art and a science, and I've created 2 more because during the process of hiring different C-suite executives for some of my clients, I've created some more topics that might not be EI traits, but they're really important traits that the employers wanted to uncover, the board of directors wanted to uncover. So I'm going to give it them to you fairly fast, but I'll hit them twice, okay? So we have self-awareness, we have self-control, we have social skills, we have motivation, empathy, stress tolerance, flexibility, problem solving, influencing others, optimism, courage, and integrity, okay? One more time. The 12 emotional intelligence traits I like to uncover when I'm interviewing people are self-awareness, self-control, social skills, motivation, empathy, stress tolerance, flexibility, problem solving, influencing others, optimism, courage, and integrity. Now, every job doesn't require all of those skills, but every job requires some of those skills. One more thing, every job should require self-awareness and self-control. That's why I've done a couple of videos in the past on self-awareness and self-control being so critically important when you're interviewing. But those kind of questions look like, tell me about a time you were in a role you later outgrew. That's an easy self-awareness question. You realized you outgrew something. Tell me about a time you had two competing deadlines and you couldn't make them both. What did you do? That's a problem-solving question. So if you get these uncomfortable questions, tell me about a time you acted inappropriately. That's a self-awareness question as well as a self-control question. Once you hear these questions enough, you're going to start having stories to help you with those questions, okay? Now, those stories are the setting for me to ask follow-up questions. So you need to make sure that those stories have a happy ending. Not that everything was perfect afterwards, but you learned something. If you didn't learn something, then don't give me the example. Because when I ask you follow-up questions, like for example, tell me about a time you said something you later regretted. You might tell me the story about something you did wrong. Okay, we've all done stuff wrong. And frankly, if you're a good recruiter, you are going to have an example to share with your candidates so they feel comfortable sharing something like that with you. And when you do that, you're going to show that, hey, look, it's okay. Look, I did that and I'm still working here where you want to work. So we're all flawed human beings and we can all get through this together. But when you do that, right, when you do that, when they do those answers, realize that my follow-up questions around that are going to be about your relationship with the person before you said it, your relationship with the person after you said it. How long did it take you to make amends? Did you ever make amends? Were you forced to making amends because HR called you into their office and said, hey, you kind of offended so-and-so yesterday. You need to do it. You need to tell them you're sorry. Or did you do it on your own? All those follow-up questions I'm going to have aren't going to be part of your story, but they're going to tell me more about you than the actual answer you gave me initially. So realize follow-up questions are the actual question to those interview questions. And you need to have something. You can't just say, I usually do this or what, because a good interviewer is going to go, oh, time out. I don't care what you usually do. I don't care what you usually do when you go through a yellow light. I care what you actually did when this happened and how you fixed it. So remember your acronym, CAR. Understand why the question's being asked. Know those emotional intelligence traits. If you don't know them, feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about it. Be prepared for the follow-up questions because that's the more important. And the last piece, job description will tell you what traits are needed very often. Now, I've done other videos on this in the past where I've told HR professionals to keep these attributes out of their job descriptions. They still haven't listened to me because many people have them. On the bottom of job descriptions, it'll often say, we're looking for a team player. We're looking for someone that has strong problem-solving skills, someone who's highly flexible or adaptable. We're looking for someone who can influence others. They are listing you all the emotional intelligence traits that they are probably going to be asking you questions about in the interview. Maybe not the first phone screen, but certainly down the road, those are the questions they're going to be asking, which means you can look at the job description and go, oh, I'm going to need to have a good, and always have self-awareness, self-control answers, okay? Be aware. Let me give you a couple of self-awareness questions. A job you outgrew, self-awareness, easy one. I don't like to use it because it's so easy. A time you felt like you were unfairly criticized. I use that one a lot. Because why were you unfairly criticized? Was it really unfair? And often when people give me that answer, as I dig in, it wasn't unfair at all. And they're lacking a little self-awareness in that moment, or they couldn't come up with something. Self-control questions. Tell me about a time when something was better left unsaid. So you actually displayed self-control by not saying something. Think of a situation where you said something you later regretted. We've all had bad days. When's the last time you blew up at work and what caused you to blow up? Those are self-control questions. So if you hear that question or a question like that, you can go, this is a self-control question. It's less intimidating to answer the question because now you understand why it's being asked. It's so important to do that so you can have a better rapport. But the job description on the bottom will say that. And when it says things like we're looking for a team player, well, you know you're going to be on a team who's flexible and adaptable and knows how to influence others. When they ask you the first question, hey, Johnny, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a team player that likes to influence others. I've had the ability to have strong social skills, blah, blah, blah. You can answer the question with your eyes closed while you're talking. But you can answer the question with very little thought, okay? So HR folks, stop putting those on the bottom. They are not helping you with your retention numbers. They are hurting you with your retention numbers, and they are giving your candidates an easy way to answer those questions, or at least predict what questions are going to be asked. Candidates, in the meantime, I guarantee my vast reach of a few hundred people is not going to change the way companies do business. So, unless you're one of my clients. So, be sure you look for those on the job descriptions. All right, so let's see if we have any live questions. We're going to get to our live questions now. As always, if you have live questions, type them into the comments section. I will be sure to answer them. But I do have several questions from clients this week that I wanted to share. So I'll get going with that. But as soon as I see a live question pop up, I will be sure that we go in there. All right, Martha in Kansas City. I'm a newly graduated from college and started with my new company as a recruiter. So Martha and I talked on Tuesday this week, so just yesterday. What's some advice you can give me? So if you're a new recruiter, and I think I have a lot of HR folks that watch this, so let me give you guys some advice, because often if you're stepping into HR, the first place they put you is recruiting, which it's unfortunate because there's just so much going on there. It's not just it's an art, it's a science, it's being able to pull information, understand why you're pulling information. But there's three things that I'll tell you initially, Martha, as to what you want to focus on if you're a new recruiter to a new company. One, you want to learn the culture of the organization. I say this all the time. 31% of people quit within 6 months of having a job. 68% of those quit within 3 months. That means 210 out of 1,000 people quit within 3 months of starting a job. If you are not understanding your culture and how to screen people to fit your culture, you're going to have a much higher number than 210 out of 1,000 quitting within 3 months. So understand your culture. Don't just take your VP's word for it. Talk to your teammates, talk to people. Say, hey, I'm a new recruiter here. What do you do here? How long have you been here? What do you like about this company? Know the answers by looking at their LinkedIn profile in advance, just like you would if you were interviewing for a job. But talk to people on your team inside the organization so you can get a good understanding as what's going on around there, especially if you're recruiting for one of their departments. Talk with everybody in the department. Hey, I'm trying to find you guys a new payroll analyst. How long have you been here, Sarah, Mike, Joe, Martha, whoever? And then they'll tell you, why do you like it here? What don't you like about here? Hey, look, I'm just trying to get, understanding the culture. Now, they're not going to know you very well, so they're probably not going to tell you everything, but at least they're going to give you some indication as to what some of the pitfalls might be. And then you can be sure that when you're hiring people and interviewing people, you can see what strengths they have and what weaknesses they have, ensuring that those things complement the rest of the team. Far too often we get a job description, we look at it, Martha, and we go, oh, this is what I'm doing, and we go to work. We never talk to anybody. Talk to your hiring manager. So first, understand the culture. Next, understand your clients. Go talk to the hiring manager of that role. Ask that hiring manager. Close the door. I call them recruiting consults. Hey, what's the biggest gap you have on your team? You got a whole bunch of IT professionals out here. I mean, I see the job description here, but you've got 3 of these people out there, because you're hiring a 4th person to join the team as an IT infrastructure person. What areas would you want to see strengthened? Well, we really need help on this and that, or this router, or whatever. Well, now you have some extra tips that when you're interviewing people, you can screen them out for. And you can tell the hiring manager, this person's really, really good at the Cisco system that you guys are getting ready to upgrade to or whatever. I'm not an IT person. I'm talking out my butt. But my point being, is if you talk to the hiring manager, you're going to build that rapport with the hiring manager. You're going to know what they're looking for, and you're going to understand your client better. There's going to be better trust there. So when you present that person, a candidate, they're going to be more likely to get excited about them with you, because you've taken the time to really know the role. And then the last thing I'll say, Martha, for your tip if you're a new recruiter, for any new recruiter, is respect your candidates. I know it goes without saying, treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And we all do that. But what I mean by respect your candidates is when your candidate is no longer considered for the job because they're disqualified for whatever reason, tell them. Don't ghost them, okay? It's really annoying. It doesn't do you any service. It hurts you more in the long run. It hurts your personal reputation, not just the company's reputation. It hurts Martha's reputation, because then Martha, 4 years from now, there's a recruiting manager job open. There's a recruiting senior recruiter role open or something. And if you've ghosted more people than you've hired, and let's be honest, you're hiring 1, you're rejecting 9, so you're potentially ghosting 90% of the people you interact with, chances are your reputation is going to be crap out there. So treat people the way you want to be treated, if nothing else, because it'll serve you well in the future. And I guess the last thing I'll say too is stop caring about hiring stats. It's really easy for me to say that, right? There's no stress of hiring anybody right now in my world. And I get that there's hiring managers breathing down your neck. We need this person by tomorrow, but care less about the hiring stats and more about the retention numbers, because it doesn't do you any good to have a revolving door of hiring someone in January to only be replacing them in June. And then they're replacing that person in September, and they're replacing that person in January again, because it takes about 18 months for a company to actually get any value out of an employee. And if the majority of people you're hiring are leaving within 3 months, you're not doing a good job. I don't care if you're hiring 100 people a month. If the majority of people you're hiring are leaving within 3 to 6 months, you are doing a terrible job as a recruiter, and you're going to get fired. Care about retention numbers. Care about your people still being there 6 months later, 1 year later, 3 years later. Care about all your people being there for longer, because guess what too? That's going to build your reputation inside the organization. You're going to have a whole bunch of allies in there. But if everybody you're hiring is getting fired or leaving, you're going to have no friends on the inside, and no one's going to trust you with their requisitions. All right, Martha, that was a little deep. Apologize for that, but hopefully that helps. Let's see, any other questions? I'm looking for the live feed real fast. Forgive me. Oh, okay, good. Christine's asking a question. We'll bring Christine up. So Christine's asking, how do you answer the question, what are your weaknesses? Why are the recruiter HR looking to ask kids? So the reason why often they're asking you what your weaknesses is twofold, Christine. One, it's a question on a script and they're going to ask because they're not very good at their job and they got to ask something. Two, there are specific weaknesses already on the team and they can't have another weakness of the same way. Meaning maybe, so if someone asked me what my weakness was, Christine, I'm going to be honest. I mean, I have a lot. I'm human, right? But today, the one I'm remembering right now is that I'm a typo king. I am really fast to act. I am going to get things done very quickly. But if you want it, if you want the emails to be crisp and polished every time, I'm probably not your guy, because instinctually I'm going to respond really quickly and push send, and then I'm going to proofread. Now, if on my team of people, we have a whole bunch of people like me, then I need someone who's going to be a detail-oriented, slow their roll down type of person. So we can send our documents to that person, they can review them, and then they can push them out to the client or give them back to us. We're going to need someone like that on our team. But not every company is like that. So very often, though, it's because there's certain weaknesses that are just not tolerated on the team. But don't do the whole Michael Scott, I work too hard. I love my job too much. And sometimes my family life just suffers for that. Like, that's crap, okay? It might be true, but I'm still not going to believe it. So come up with a real weakness. You could just say, hey, I'm not a fast typer. Maybe you're working in the field on a drill ship. You don't need to be a fast typer. But, I mean, you need to have some real weaknesses there. So that's really the why. And again, not knowing the specific role situation, those are the two scenarios I can kind of figure out why people would ask that question. All right, no more live questions. But again, if you do, bring them on in. I'll share them just like I did with Christine's. And also, if you like any of the stuff we're sharing, please give me a like. Click like on our feed here. Makes me feel good. And again, it helps my reach go out there a little further. Okay, Reggie in Austin is asking, my resume is an awkward 1.25 pages long. Should I grow it to 2 pages or shrink it to 1 page? If I grow it, what should I add? Hobbies? Now, this is tough, right? Because most people know I am the person that says there is no right length for a resume as long as It is concise, doesn't repeat itself, and every bullet is relevant to the job you're applying for. With that, and their accomplishments. With that, if you're right there at that cusp of being 1 1/4 pages, you got to do something. You got to remove a couple of things, but I don't think you need to add hobbies. You can change some formatting stuff. We can add some page breaks, just some lines, literally physical lines that break up the sections of information. This is really prominent with like 3 or 4 years of experience type of people. And you got your college experience, you got 3 or 4 years of experience after that. And now you're kind of in this awkward stage of being almost more than a page and a half, but not quite there. I don't like the hobbies, and I don't like a skills section. I would much rather you add a volunteer section. I call it community involvement, because that'll show your passions. It'll show some tangible skills, some technical skills potentially, but it'll show that you're actually working, not just playing. So I think the resume should be more professional, and community involvement would be the section I would add for you, Reggie. Itero, there's a platform I want to find out. Okay, let's see if this is a question. If it's not, Itero, find out how I can know if I'm still in consideration for the role after the recruiter didn't turn up for an interview. Oh my, so you got ghosted. I'm going to say you're not in consideration for the role, but a few things. I mean, first of all, you can, however you reached out to them initially, Itero, if they reached out to you or you reached out to them, follow that same platform, okay? Give them 3 times. 3 follow-ups is my rule. Hey, thanks so much for the conversation last week. Really excited about next steps. Hey, haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. Haven't heard from you in a little over 2 weeks. Then they don't want to talk to you for whatever reason. But to avoid that situation in the future, what you can do is when they're interviewing you, you can ask them at the end of the interview, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. What are the next steps and when can I expect to hear back from you? They'll tell you something. Let's just say they say, you expect to hear back from us on Thursday, October 7th. Great. Does that mean on Friday, October 9th, if I haven't, or 8th, if I haven't heard back from you, I can call you or email you? Yeah, absolutely. You've now gotten permission. Get permission to follow up with them on a specific date, but you first need to know what that permission is going to be based on the information they give you. All right. Al asks, how do I get the interview as an older business manager? Seems ageism becomes a barrier to retaining in the workforce. Now, Al, this is an honest question that I get weekly from my clients, and I believe ageism is real. However, I'm going to say that I've hired CEOs of companies, I've hired senior chief executives, and I've worked with many boards of directors, and never in any one of those situations has anybody who's in the position of authority said we don't want someone who is over the age of fill in the blank, or we don't want somebody, I've heard I don't want someone who's younger than this for those roles, but never older. So the first thing is ageism is real, but it depends on what you're applying to. If you're applying to jobs that 23-year-olds can do, you're probably not going to get the job, not because you're too old, but because you're going to cost more. Now, you may not cost more, but I'm going to assume as a recruiter you're going to cost more. And if I'm assuming as a recruiter you're going to cost more, then I'm not going to call you, because I always say you want to answer the questions before they're asked. So in your case, I would have a cover letter to any of the roles I'm applying for. And it'd be very critical for you, Al, to explain why you're applying to a role that might be deemed beneath you. Because I am going to assume as a recruiter, Al just needs a job. Al has been a senior manager for the past 10 years, and now he's applying to an analyst job. He just wants a job. I'm not going to hire Al. Unless there's a cover letter, and Al says in that cover letter, you might see that on my resume, I've been doing 10 years of working as a manager. And frankly, I don't love leading people. I love being busy in the work, in the data. That's my passion. It took me a while to figure it out, but that's my passion. I am much more likely to call you now, Al, because you had a cover letter that answered the question that I didn't ask. And the question was, why is Al applying to this job? And you just said it. Hey, no one's talking to me anyway, right? So put the darn cover letter in there. Explain why you're applying to that job. Because if you don't explain it, you're not going to get a chance to, most likely. All right, we got time. I had a whole. Okay, so let me say this before we go to our last question. If you like this, Give me a thumbs up. Give me a little applause. Give me something. Second, check it out tomorrow on Facebook. We'll have different questions on Facebook, same topic on the overview. So feel free to pop on in 15 minutes into the Facebook session, or it's on YouTube. We'll do one more quick subscribe to the YouTube channel so you know where the YouTube banner is and where I am. But check that out over there. Make sure that you check out these platforms, because if you're not trying to get stronger right now, your competition is. And the people who are interviewing you against you, the people who are applying to jobs against you, somebody is getting better, whether it's with me or somebody else, and you need to make sure you're sharpening your skills. So let's get to our last question. I think I saw a live question. If I didn't, then I screwed it up. But yeah, from Christine again. How do you respond to people that say you're overexperienced? My situation is going on for a less reasonable job. No more VP jobs. Don't want a senior. Okay, so I think it's the same thing, Christine. You're overexperienced. Overexperienced means you're too expensive. So you need to somehow address that in the first conversation, but you need to get that first conversation. And if you need to get that first conversation, you probably need the cover letter, or you need to be reaching out to people separately on LinkedIn through social media. Hey, this is Christine. I just applied to this manager role on your website, requisition number, so-and-so. I'd love it if you would take a couple minutes and just review my resume to see if you think I'm a fit. You don't ask for the interview. You also say, I would love it in your expert opinion. I actually have an article about this on how to get the job.blog, about how to increase when you're cold calling your resume. Read that article. It might help, Christine. And I think we have a coffee set up soon. So we could talk about that then there as well, because there's just, as anyone who knows me, who works with me, there's just so many follow-up questions I have to these specific situations that it's really tough for me to give you the best answer without 3 or 4 follow-up questions. So I really appreciate everyone joining. Again, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Instagram, I give daily tips on Instagram. Okay, if this is too much, if 30 minutes is too much, if 7 minutes is too much, follow me on Instagram, hired_how to get the job. I give a daily tip on resume writing, salary negotiation, cover letters. I might even be in the middle of working on a resume and I'll pop the resume in minus the contact information and give a live example as to what's going on with this resume and what I don't like about it and why I'm trying to help fix it. So be sure to check me out on those platforms. As always, if you like this, share it with somebody. Please connect me with anybody in your network who you think I might be able to help show them how to get the job. I'll see you next time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye.